the gentleman on the corner over here with the beard, gray beard and all that, he said that, here, he said that he's got a condition where he gets up and down a whole lot. So if you see him getting up and down, it's just because
Oh, that's fine. Yeah, I appreciate the heads up.
We're going to go ahead with just a couple announcements. Stacy is not here yet, and Stacy got detained a little bit, but he is on his way here. So we'll go ahead and start with some announcements, and that way, by the time Stacy gets here, we should be through with announcements. So I'm glad you're here tonight. It looks like most of your home folks are familiar with the place, but if you're not, the ladies' room is on this hallway, the men's room is on this hallway. So those are the two important details that you need to know. I've asked Everett Womack if he would to come up and share a little bit about an opportunity for some defense training that absolutely works for senior adults in particular, for anybody of any age really. But Everett, you come on up and let folks know. If you'll just stand here behind the pulpit, you'll be mic'd for that.
Well, I wore my fancy red shirt so you'd remember me. That Appleseed guy, this is my Appleseed shirt. But some of you know that last Sunday I got recruited to head up security for church. It's not really security, it's emergency response team. And I just want to know that I'll welcome you to help me out in that regard. We need lots of good folks to help for emergency response. And that includes especially medical, fire and evacuation of the church in the event that we had that issue. Also, some first aid training. I'd like to get some first aid training in here, some CPR. Of course, I need to know who all the nurses are in our congregation. And then I want to talk to you about what I'm really going to call cane exercise and stretching class. You know, this is a medical device. It's not a weapon, it's a medical device. My understanding is you can carry this anywhere, including church, but you can carry it in the courthouse, you can carry it to the airport, you can carry it on airlines because it is a medical device. But if it ever came needed for you to use to defend yourself or someone that's with you, this can be a very effective tool for defending yourself because it gives you 3 foot of extension for your arm. And so what we'll be doing in the class, and I'm going to set it up for Thursday at 9:30 in the morning on Thursdays here at the church, and there'll be more information coming about that before you can sign up. And we'll be just going through some very light stretching with a cane, very light exercise, and then we'll talk about what you might want to use it for if you were required to defend yourself with it. It's better to have something like this than nothing. Pastor, that pretty much covers what I wanted to cover.
All right, at this time, it's my privilege to introduce to you Stacy Nicholson, our sheriff. I've known Stacy now for several years, and no, it was not because I was in jail. Our sons actually played ball together for a few years over at the high school, and we had to put up with one another. I'll just put it that way. But I appreciate Stacy being here tonight. Stacy, you come on up. Start.
Thank you, Dan. It's good to be with y'all tonight. I could tell some stories on your pastor from baseball games. You know how parents are. They get all enthralled in baseball games. But I'll leave that for another occasion. I'm going to read something. I don't like to get up in front of a crowd and read, but I'm going to read y'all. It's a Facebook post. A friend of mine, law enforcement officer, one of the most well-respected law enforcement officers that I've ever met. I'll just say that. John Cagle, he works for the Pickens County Sheriff's Office. He retired from GBI several years ago. And I'm going to read you something he wrote. He's also a writer. He's wrote at least one book. He's also a writer. And I'm going to read this to you, and this is what we're here about tonight. As some of you know, I spent the last 43 years working in the criminal justice system as a special agent at GBI, college professor teaching courses in criminal justice, and now as a supervisor of an investigative unit in my hometown sheriff's office. In local law enforcement, however, we see things that quite frankly would surprise most folks. Amongst these things, most of us would be most embarrassed to call about are the things that will break your heart. Someone called me and asked me if I could come talk, if they could come talk with me. Since I've known the person since I was 5 years old, I said I would come see them. As I sat at their table and listened to their story, I remembered how carefully they had taken care of me many years ago and made sure I was protected until my mother came home. I began to tear up inside, and I then listened about the thousands of dollars sent to scammers over the past couple of years on the promise of a big reward and the threats if money wasn't sent. I'm talking from someone who is dependent on Social Security only. Since most of these scams originate out of this county, I had to say that the money was lost. I saw the disappointment in someone who had been looked after, or who had been looked after so carefully as a child who now could do nothing. Please, if you have elderly family or friends who you might believe might fall prey to these scams of any kind, keep a close eye on them. Sometimes they are embarrassed to report it, and you should not be. That right there is the message we're trying to send. There's no, I feel certain. I was telling someone today, I was talking to them today, and I said, you know, I'm kind of out of the investigative loop. There's a lot of new things that are going on that I've never had experience investigating, because I've been sheriff for 16 years. Sure, I'm over the sheriff's office, I'm over the investigators, but if you're not on boots on the ground every day investigating these cases, you don't stay sharp on some of the things that's actually going on. You know peripherally about it. And I told that person today that unfortunately there's just so many things out there, so many scams, and we're going to talk to you about them. And the biggest thing we can do is to make you aware of them and to tell you what to do if they call, if they contact you. Because once that money is out of your hands and into scammers' hands, usually that's done via computer or over the telephone. Once that money transaction has been made, there's not much we can do about it. So the biggest thing we can do in law enforcement is to get the word out to you, and for you to get the word out to your family. And are we Facebook Live? Audience, younger audience, talk to your elderly family members and friends. They are the target. They are the target of these scammers, and talk to them. I call it, when I made an analogy that when you're a parent and you've got teenage kids and you have to sit them down and have the talk with them about life, well, now it's time that the roles have reversed. Young adults, have the talk with your elderly family members. Tell them to not talk to these scammers, and whether it be via computer or over the telephone. You don't know how many times a week that I talk to someone in my office or they call me on the phone, and I had someone call me on the phone and they said, my son is on the phone with the DEA, Drug Enforcement Administration, the FBI of the drug world. And they say that they're going to come arrest him because some car that he used to own years ago was found in Texas with drugs in them. But he can send some type of money. I guess it's for fine, and they'll not arrest him. But if they don't do that, if we don't do that, they're going to take him to jail. And I said, hang up on them. What do you mean hang up? They're going to take him to jail. It's the DEA. And I said, no, it's not. It's a scam. Hang up on them. Well, the son kept talking to him, and I said, tell your son to tell them you're talking to the sheriff on the phone, and he's saying, this is a scam, hang up. The son told them. They threatened to arrest me. But guess what? I said, come to LJ and arrest me because this is a scam. It's a scam. Here's the thing. Why do these folks prey on the elderly? You're a more trusting generation. You're trusting. You are more apt to. It's not that you're apt to fall for this. You are a trusting generation. My generation, and certainly the younger generation, we don't trust nobody. But so they make probably hundreds of calls a day, and they expect someone to fall, and they do. And right here in this community, people have fallen prey to these scams, and it happens regularly. And I'm not talking about $500. I'm talking about tens of thousands of dollars that people lose. They lose their life savings. Another scam, I'm sure Russell, I'm going to introduce somebody to you here in just a second. Another scam is they call and they tell you on the other end, they say, Grandma or Grandpa, it's your grandchild. I'm in jail. Please don't tell Mom and Dad, but I need you to send some money to me. I've talked to people that have gone to the bank to withdraw their money, and luckily the bank recognized it, and the bank wouldn't. They just flat out refused, and there was, kind of a skirmish between the bank and the customer until they made them realize that they're being scammed. And the most recent fellow that I talked to came in my office, and he had tears running down his face because he said it was so real, it sounded just like my grandson. I don't know how you get that good at being a criminal, but they are. They are. So my biggest message to you is don't talk to these people on the phone. If they call and they say that they're with the sheriff's office, and you miss court or you miss jury duty and we're going to come put you in jail, we don't do that. If they call and they say they're with the IRS and your Social Security or Social Security Administration and your numbers, Social Security Administration doesn't call you. The IRS won't call you. And if they do, they shouldn't, because their agency name is being used to scam people every day out of millions of dollars across the United States. I'm going to bring one of my detectives up, and I'm going to introduce him. I'm going to tell a real quick story. Russell, you can ease this way. Years ago, I was working for Sheriff Bernhardt. I'm talking 20, 25 years ago, and I met this gentleman, and he drove back and forth every day from LJ to Marietta Police Department. And I think we worked a case together. Maybe we had some overlapping case or something. And I said, Russell, you need to come to work here. Well, he didn't until he retired. And once he retired, he decided that it is time, and we're lucky to have him. I'm going to tell you a real quick story about him. One of the nicest, soft-spokenest persons that you'll ever want to meet. But December the 31st of 2015, we had a murder in Gilmer County. 3 people from south of here had come up, and they were going to rob a drug dealer that they were aware of. They were going to rob him of his drugs, and he fought back, and they ended up getting into a shooting, and they killed him. And so it was a complete and total whodunit, and the sheriff's office and GBI was investigating, and we were we started identifying people. It happened on December 28th, and on December the 30th, we knew who had done it, and we started trying to locate these people. We arrested one in Pickens County. That led us to Ackworth. Into the wee hours of New Year's Eve on that year, on the wee hours of the morning, we were in Ackworth, and we arrested the shooter. And then after daylight, we were down in Marietta, and we had, I and a couple of my deputies and the GBI agent, Dustin Hamby, we hadn't slept, and I didn't even remember the last time I had slept. It was probably going in close to 40 or 48 hours, and we end up down in Russell's neck of the woods in Marietta, and we go out to it, and they were very familiar with this guy. He was a gang member, or gang-affiliated guy down in Marietta, and he said, I know right where he lives. And so we go out there, and Marietta detectives help us surround the house, and me and the GBI agent go to the door. We knock on the door, and they come. They say, Tank's not here. Tank's not here. Where's he at? He's not here. And so GBI agent's talking to this girl, and they're starting to argue a little bit because Tank is there, and we know he's there. And I'm standing in the doorway, and I just kind of step back, and I look, and out from around the house, Russell had gone on the one side of the house. Here comes Russell with Tank. Russell was standing there minding his own business, helping us secure this house when Tank jumped out of the second-story window of that house right into Russell's arms, and he nabbed him and brought him in. I knew right then that Russell needed to work for the sheriff's office. Y'all welcome Russell Henson.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm not going to lie, yes, I'm nervous. Thank you very much for coming out tonight with the weather and all, and I'm glad to see that you have interest in all this kind of stuff. I honestly thought when I came here, it's like Mayberry RFD. It's not. But there's numerous pieces of information out there on the front. There's some information pamphlets here on the front row. If you want to get some of those, it'd be great. Most everything that we have put out is available online. As a matter of fact, one of the handouts is a resource list of several pages where you can go on the internet and look up different aspects of it. Tell you right now, Gilmer County Sheriff's Office is committed to helping our vulnerable citizens all along. We can't always help you because, as the sheriff said, sometimes it's too late. Once you commit the money, either through mailing or wire fraud or what have you, it's gone. Once you take it out of the bank, it's yours. The bank's no longer responsible for it. They will not replace it for you. Please speak to your friends, your family. If you have been contacted in any way, shape, form, or fashion, or you know someone that's been taken this way, please let them know. There is help. Just a quick question. How many of you are Facebook users? How many of you are social media users other than Facebook, such as Twitter and Instagram? Just a few? Okay. How many of you receive multiple texts from people or companies that you're not familiar with? Okay. How many of you are victims? How many of you have been victimized in the past? There's no shame in it. They prey on you, and even me. I still get these robocalls because everyone is vulnerable to it. It's just knowing not to accept it. There's no shame in being a victim, but there is one. Yes, sir?
We have some old people in here that can't hear, so if you turn the mic up, talk a little louder.
All right, how's that? Thank you. I never know if I'm too loud. I don't want to sound like I'm yelling at you. All right. Effective February of 2021, this year, the Georgia Bureau of Investigation, the Crimes Against Disabled Adults and Elders Unit, and the Department of Human Resources, the Division of Aging Services, the Forensic Specialist Initiative Unit, they joined forces to create what's called the Crimes Against Disabled Adult and Elder Task Force, CADE Task Force. Hopefully, they'll be able to encourage the citizens more to report this, because The con artists get away with it because you're too ashamed to say something about it. You're either too ashamed or you just are not aware of the fact that you've been taken. But that is how they can always get through with it, because no one reports it, or very few report it. Tonight we're going to go over the top 10 most reported scams. The first one is the Irs Impersonation Scam. The second is the Robocall Unsolicited Phone Calls Scam. The third are the Sweepstakes and Jamaican Lottery Scam. You might as well throw in Publishers Clearinghouse as well. The Computer Tech Support Scam. Elder Financial Abuse Scam. Grandparent Scam, as the sheriff mentioned. Romance Scam is true. Social Security Impersonation Scam, Impending Lawsuit Scam, and Identity Theft. All these go hand in hand, just in one various degree or the other. In Georgia, the top 5 scams are the charity scams, elder financial abuse, the Jamaican Lottery Scam, the timeshare scams, and the romance scams. There's one of the items that was down here, and I think it may be out on there. It's the blue sheet is telling you how to avoid scams, what to do should you actually be contacted. There's also a fraud resources appendix. It has numerous resources online, from federal government all the way on down local. That should be available here, and I believe it's also out on the front. There's a little slip of paper that has three numbers and resources on it. That's the Gilmer County Sheriff's Office. Gilmer County, if you're not on Facebook, if you decide to go to Facebook, look up the Gilmer County Sheriff's Office site and follow. It'll keep you up to date as to what's going on locally, or at least as much as possible. Also, we'll be posting scam alerts as it goes. Okay. There's also the email, which is tips@gilmersheriff.com, and there's also the phone tip line. Please feel free to use these resources. You're not a burden. The number 1 scam is Irs Impersonation Scam, and as we know, this is tax season. Everybody's phishing. When they're reaching out to you online, they're phishing. They're looking for your information. They're trying to see what you will give them. A lot of them will call you and they'll threaten you, saying that, hey, you owe back taxes. We're going to arrest you if you don't send us money. If you don't give us access to your information, such as your Social Security number. I don't even give out my address or my phone number if they've called me, because unfortunately a lot of times they'll do blind calls, and it's just whoever picks it up. It's not like they really know you. It's just a number or a resource that they got from the black web. More than 14,700 Americans have lost a total of more than $72.8 million to the IRS scam, and that was in 2018. It's easy to be taken, but if you'll remember, IRS will never call a taxpayer to demand immediate payment, nor will the agency call about taxes owed without first having mailed a bill to the taxpayer. So if you receive that bill, it's a potential that it's a valid call, but they will never tell you to send them gift cards. They will never tell you to send them a wire. It's all done legitimately through a bank system, but never ever cash. Never ever gift cards. That's not even legitimate a way of banking, I guess you'd say. The IRS will never demand that the taxpayer pay taxes without giving him or her the opportunity to appeal. So that's a guide there. The IRS will never ask for credit or debit card number over the phone. The IRS will never threaten to send local police or law enforcement to your location to arrest you. How many of you have heard of spoofed calls? They can make it look like it's a local number. They can make it look like it's the Gilmer County Sheriff's Office. There's a software out there which unfortunately a lot of these people have, and they can make it look local. Unfortunately, we all have to deal with it because you pick it up and it's a robot call or a robocall. The IRS will never require taxpayers to use a special method payment, such as prepaid gift cards, debit cards, and so forth. Most all con artists want your money in various means, and they don't want it through a check typically. They want it untraceable, because once you buy a gift card and give them that little number on the back, it's gone. It cannot be traced where it went. Okay. There are multiple variations of the Irs Impersonation Scam. Criminals generally accuse victims of owing back taxes and penalties, and they've even gone to the low level of reaching out to those whose recently deceased spouse or family member. They'll try to jump on that train and say, hey, they owe. If you don't, then it's going to impact you. It's going to impact their history. Don't fall for it. Again, the IRS will indeed send you paperwork before they'll ever call you. And we spoke of the spoofed phone calls. They've actually spoofed the IRS's own phone number, but it's a phone number that does not, it can't be reached from outside. It's one that typically will do an auto call. And something that's new. Under the new law, the IRS will notify a taxpayer in writing that their account is being transferred to a private collection agency. This muddies the waters as to what you can or cannot believe. But even if it's a legit call, do not give your information, any bank account information, any personal identifiers, date of birth, Social Security. If it's legit, tell them to mail it to you. If they have to ask for your address, then they're not legit. Because if they are a valid company trying to recover money for the government, they know you, they know your address, they know your Social Security number, they know everything. Nothing that you'd have to be telling them over the line. And we touched on robocalls, unsolicited calls. And again, I sound like I'm yelling. Okay. That's the number 2 issue right now. For whatever reason, they're able to just do dozens and dozens and dozens of calls at the touch of a button, and they're just looking for a victim to answer. Usually it's your auto warranty is expiring, your Medicaid, your Medicare, your insurance. They're trying to suck information out of you. Until you actually answer and speak to them and provide them information, they cannot harm you. But once you give them that information, they can harm you. So ultimately, just don't tell them anything. Send it to me in writing. If you believe that this may be a legit call, come off the phone line, get on the internet, type in, look and see what is listed for that resource. How many want to win the lottery? I used to be one of those people, and I figured out I never win. All I do is give them my money. Well, unfortunately, if someone contacts you about a lottery that you have won and they just need your amount of money to pay the taxes on it, or your information to give to the IRS, such as your Social Security number, your date of birth, your EIN number, anything, it's a scam. If it's not something you have honestly registered for, and even the Publishers Clearinghouse, I realize people register and sign up for the Publishers Clearinghouse. We get the paperwork at our house all the time. If it's not through their company, as in physical writing, I wouldn't trust it. There's nothing I would trust over the phone or over the internet when it comes to you have won. The Jamaican Lottery is a scam where fraudsters generally contact victims by phone or through the mail to tell them that they have won or have been entered to win a prize. Scammers then require the victims to pay a fee to either collect their supposed winnings or improve their odds of winning the prize. There's a hint right there. If you've got to pay money to increase your chances of winning, it's not legit. An 82-year-old man lost $30,000 after paying taxes on $10.5 million to Publishers Clearinghouse winnings. So, it's real. It'll take you in a heartbeat. They do about 30,000 calls to the United States per day. And they stole $300 million per year from tens of thousands of seniors. These are all on the government website. It's not made up numbers, it's statistics that they have actually gained. They're very good at adopting methods that will make you trust them, using methods that will make you trust them. Once they hit you the first time, they're going to come back for seconds because you're vulnerable. They now know it, and then quite often they will resell your number. They'll also resell your social security number. They'll resell your addresses. Anything you give them, they can make money off it selling it to another scammer. Okay. It's not all doom and gloom. It's just knowing what to look for and how to react to it. It's not, everything's not lost. Victims who resist their inquiries begin receiving calls from Jamaicans posing as American government officials, including local law enforcement, the FBI, the Social Security Administration, and Department of Homeland Security, asking for personal data and bank account numbers so they can solve the crime. If you have a crime, it needs to go through us. We will elevate it to the next level if it actually can make it to the GBI or the FBI. But if you have been scammed, start with us. Okay. Who is supercomputer tech savvy? Me neither. However, they do make $15 million a year plus scamming people on these little devices. They can actually call you again. They buy your information typically off the internet or off leads. In 2017, the ICCC, which is the Internet Crime Complaint Center, in cooperation with the FBI and the National White Collar Crime Center, received 10,949 tech support fraud complaints with losses amounting to nearly $15 million. That's in 2017, and it's increased since then. And that's the ones that reported it. Because unfortunately, quite often, the ones that there are still many people taken that truly don't have an idea that they've been taken. They'll ask you to open up access to your computer, which they can actually, if you go through the process they're going to talk you through over the phone, it can give them remote access to your computer, to your system, and they can dive through, they can install software, they can mine your information from it. Okay. Not only your information, they go into your address book and pick out everybody else's information and start sending the same stuff to them. Typically, they'll pose as people that we see that you are having this problem, and it's typically stuff like slow computers and either you're not able to maneuver properly through something. That's me. I'm not a super tech person, but I also know that unless I reach out to the company, I'm not going to give them my information. I am not going to allow remote access to my computer system. Because again, all they've got to do is to install their software, or once they have remote access, they can start the mining process. And it can be running while you're not even aware it's running, unless you know what to look for. It says, some customers unknowingly call a fraudulent tech support number after viewing the phone number online. A lot of times, say you go on the internet and you type in slow computer or locked page or what have you, they've got ratings on who shows up first on the list of Google searches or Bing or whomever. Not all those are legit. You can buy your way into a #1 slot. And if they can mine enough information and take your money, your resources, then it's worth their cost. And the most prevalent variation of this scam being the computer tech software scam. Con artists randomly call potential victims and offer to clean their computers and or sell them a long-term or technical support service. If it's not a legit, well, I'm not even going to say the company names. If it's not someone you recognize to be a legitimate software company, which is typically showing up on all these computer systems, be very wary about reaching out to a third party. If victims express concerns about the price, the con artist will often entice victims to pay by offering a senior citizen discount. I don't know about y'all, but I've not seen very many senior citizen discounts that are worth it. These are tips from the Federal Trade Commission, FTC, to help consumers avoid becoming a victim of computer-based scam. Do not give control of your computer to a third party that calls you out of the blue. Do not rely on caller ID to authenticate the call, because as I said, they can spoof. They can make it look like it's coming from my own house. They can make it look like it's coming from Sheriff Nicholson's house. Do not rely on the caller ID. Criminals they do spoof the calls. If you want to contact tech support, look for a company's contact information on its software package or on the computer. It's not the internet, but typically if your computer has software installed, it says on the back of it or on the bottom of it. If a caller presses you to buy a computer security product or says this is a free subscription associated with the call, hang up. You have the power to not be a victim. All it takes is hanging that phone up or coming off the internet. You have that power. It's within your grasp. It's just, are you going to fall prey to these people? Make sure you have updated all your computers' antivirus software, firewalls, pop-up blockers, and so forth. I had to get my kid to help me. My daughter and my son, they are the computer users, so I don't mess with it. But I do know that you never give the information out, ever. Let's talk elder financial abuse. And I hate to say this, it's not just on the internet. It's local. It's family, oftentimes. But for this, speaking to this portion, we're going to talk about over the internet. Basically, this financial exploitation of older Americans is the illegal or improper use of an older adult's funds, property, or assets. Most of you have worked your life, or actually most of us have worked our life trying to prepare for a point in life to where we don't have to work so hard, where we can actually manage to pay our bills, buy medicine as needed, do whatever is needed to be self-sufficient. Once you let go of your funds, it puts you back in the ballpark of you got to run, you've got to work, or you got to do without. So please think it through before you give anything. The fraud hotline documents complaints of elder abuse and refers calls to local jurisdictions, APS, which is Adult Protective Services, for further action. We typically get referrals from the APS, Adult Protective Services, and it's not just where it's neglect or there's abuse, physical abuse. Quite often it's financial abuse, either, again, through the internet, family member. Here in Gilmer County, we've worked in numerous cases. And it's sad, it's as the sheriff said, one lady's out 80,000 plus. I talked to the bank, and they tried their best to talk her out of it. It was a scam. She would not tell them what she was doing, but she was buying gift cards. I never heard exactly what all she did, but she was buying gift cards, and she emptied both of her bank accounts. And again, once it comes out of that bank, it's yours. There is no replacing it. Okay? One study found that women are almost twice as likely to be taken victims of through this scam. You've got hearts. You actually are considerate of others. to the extent that your emotions play part of it. Men are we're kind of grouchy, and we're kind of like, I'm not going to let go of anything. So it can come from family, or it can come from people claiming to be family over the internet, or even cell phones, or your phone, period. It is rampant throughout the United States. It is rampant, and it's billions of dollars that are being milked from the elderly. Victims whose assets are taken by family members typically do not want their relatives to be criminally prosecuted, leaving civil actions as the only mechanism to recover stolen assets. It's sad to say that a family member would treat you that way, but they will. And so will someone taking on the role of caregiver. You know, someone being your caregiver can also get into your graces and give you a spiel of, poor me, this is what I need. And typically they know you've got a good heart. It doesn't take a caregiver long to realize what kind of person you are if you're under their care. So just be careful of that. I'm working one now. Unfortunately, the property, the home, was signed over to this caregiver because we have to admit, we all are creatures of needing love, needing someone to be around us. And as we age, typically we see that there's less activity from the family because everybody's busy doing their thing. And it doesn't take long to play on your emotions and get you into their scheme of milking you. If this has happened to you, or if you know someone this has happened to that's just shall we say, ashamed instead of saying anything, please notify us. The tip line, the phone. If it's an emergency, obviously call 911. But right off the bat, if you know somebody, perhaps there's something we can do. Money that is stolen is rarely recovered, which can undermine the victim's ability to support or care for themselves. We all want to be able to be free in that respect where we're not managed so much by someone else. But as we age, we all make decisions that could have big consequences for us. Many states have passed laws, and that's one of the reasons for CADE task force, is we recognize the mere fact that our vulnerable citizens are being taken advantage of. And again, if we do not know, there's nothing we can do. If we know too late, there's nothing we can do. Number one, never send money through the mail. $1 here, $1 there, may be fine. Something, gifts, because we all do little gifts of that type. But if they're asking you to cash, I worked a case where a lady sent $50,000 in shoe boxes because he could not get access to his $1 million bank account because he was out of the country. Unfortunately, that will fall under another scam, and I'll bring it up in that respect as well. Our biggest hope is that you can recognize the scam attempts and end all communications with the perpetrator. Every scam has one common denominator: you. Your actions, your inactions. You have the power to stop these people from victimizing you more than we do. Grandparent scams. Rarely do the grandchildren themselves actually become a part of it. There are occasions where the grandchildren are a part of it, but it's not frequent. A common scam that deliberately targets older Americans is the grandparent scam. In this scam, imposters either pretend to be the victim's grandchild and or claim to be holding the victim's grandchild. It can be either, they've been involved in an accident. They really need your money to help them. They've been arrested. They need bail money. They're being sued because whoever they got in a car wreck with down here in El Salvador was pregnant, and now we need to pay for the care. Most of these, in reality, are foreign scams. And the only reason I use El Salvador is it's centrally located here. It's all over the world, typically. It's not so much there. But they're in a foreign country, paying a hospital bill, get out of jail. They've also gone to the point of saying, hey, I broke my nose, that's why I don't sound like John or Jill or whomever. I was in a wreck, or I got in a fight and I've been arrested. Now this officer here is going to keep me forever if you don't send me $5,000. And typically if you fall prey and give them money, they're coming back for more. Because now John or Jill needs a way of getting out of the country, and they have to bribe whomever. So it's just they'll milk you until you're dry. It's also common for the con artist impersonating the victim's grandchildren to talk briefly with the victim and then hand the phone over to an accomplice impersonating that authority figure. Since I've been here in Gilmer County, I've not heard of that happening, being calls here. If it is, please let us know. You? Did you? Thank you. Thank you. When you got that call, did it ever enter your mind to say, hey, let's call the sheriff's office and see if there's any others, or that packet I handed out with all the resource numbers? You can go online and report these type of schemes, and it will target the location, the demographics. Well, right. Well, I'm glad to hear that you did not fall. Between January 1st, 2012 and May 31st, 2014, individuals reported more than $42 million in losses to these type calls. That's a lot of money, and that's old statistics. That's 2014. That's 18 years, 17 years. All those pamphlets we handed out and the pamphlets that are out here in the lobby have resources you can call. If it's something that's happening with you and you have questions about it and they're not willing to work with you, hang up. If it's legit, they'll call back, and then when they call back, ask for more information. Do not give information. Typically, you're right. Something like that, if you can't name my son or my grandchild that you're saying you have or that you are, then you're a scammer. Romance scams. It's not uncommon. Everyone needs companionship. And unfortunately, a lot of times people have to go online because for whatever reason is in a person's mind, they don't feel comfortable in the dating scene anymore, or they just don't want to take the time to interact with people. A lot of times these romance schemes come from these dating sites. And I realize everybody that goes to a romance site is not looking to hook up. They're not. They're just wanting companionship. It's someone to talk to, someone that will listen to you, someone that you can confide in, that you feel comfortable with, because hey, all you've got to do is push the button and they're gone. It's not like they can come back on you typically. But a lot of times with the romance scams, they'll actually get your confidence to where you're at ease with them, and then they'll start saying, hey, I've hit a hard time here. I need some money, or this doctor bill's coming up, or it's just something to try to milk your money, or I need money to come visit you. That's where the $50,000 issue came up. She started out with $3,000 for him to come visit her. Then he said, I've been stopped by the officials here in this country, and they will not allow me to leave unless I pay a bribe, and I am unable to access my $1 million bank account, so would you send me $50,000? Of course, they sent her, in order to do that, they sent her a check in the mail. She deposited that check in her bank account. Then she withdrew the funds from her bank account. Now the FBI has called me saying, hey, what's the deal with this lady here? Because that money came out of this other account in Ohio. So that's called being a money mule. Same with, they'll reach out to you and they'll try to send you gift cards, debit cards, primarily gift cards, and say, hey, when you receive this, scratch off the back, text us the numbers, or text us a picture of the numbers, and you can keep a percentage. And once you do that, they don't have to have the physical card. Once they have that number, they've got the money, and you have now become a money mule. Gaining your trust, it works on your emotions. It works on the mere fact you're vulnerable because you need companionship. We all need companionship. And I discussed the sending checks for the victims to cash, and that's just here in Gilmer County. The lady withdrawing all her money from the bank and sending it stuck in magazines to different locations, $80,000. Now she's pretty well destitute. In 2014, they had 5,883 complaints about the romance and confidence scam, and it cost the victims $86.7 million, which is never recovered. Tips from the FBI Internet Crime Center is be cautious of individuals who claimed the romance was destiny or fate, or that you are meant to be together. How do I put this? If someone used to, as I was growing up, if somebody told me they loved me too quick, I'm just gone. Period, because you don't fall in love with me that fast. It just doesn't happen. So if someone tells you over the internet that they love you, that it's fate, that it's destiny, get off of it. And listen, please do not take me wrong. I'm not belittling the whole issue because I realize it's human nature. Human nature says, I need someone to converse with. I need someone to at least show some attention to me, even though it may be nothing more than a conversation. It's common, it's normal, it's human. Romance and confidence scams disproportionately target women. Typically, as we age, the male is the first to leave. And that leaves the female vulnerable. She's lost her spouse, she's lost the years that they've had together, so that bond has to be filled. So, be cautious if an individual tells you he or she is in love with you and cannot live without you but needs you to send money to fund a visit. Fraudsters typically claim to be originally from the United States or your local region but are currently overseas or going overseas on business or family matters. I know at least one of my family members, not from here in Gilmer County, but was stupid enough in her attempts to settle for somebody overseas because she felt he would be better for her, he'd be nicer to her. We all have family that they've gone through rough times, period. And if you have family members that you feel are experiencing that, or you have friends that you feel are experiencing that, be a friend to them. Reach out and actually talk to them. Visit them as you can. Give them hope that they don't have to rely on the internet to have access to humans. Okay? Social Security Impersonation Scam. It's made the top 10 list for 2018. It involves consumers receiving calls from individuals claiming to represent the Social Security Administration. I had that. I'm in my 60s, but I'm not ready for Social Security to be reaching out to me to take what I don't have. The caller generally asks for personal information such as Social Security number, date of birth, the mother's maiden name, and or bank or financial institution information. Most of you don't get on Facebook from who did not raise their hands. These little queries they post, these posts they make saying, hey, name, what's your dog's name, what's your mom's name, what's your favorite color, those are phishing for your personal identifiers, your security question information for your accounts. And if they can get you to answer enough of them, they're going to have everything. Okay, so just be aware of that too. Hate to burst a bubble, internet's bad in some respects. All right. If someone's saying they're from the Social Security, does email you requesting information, don't respond to the message. Reach out to, if it's got a link, don't hit that link. Actually go research the Social Security Administration's information, their website, their true website. Reach out to them through that. One thing I've experienced is with family and friends, when you try to reach the Social Security Administration, you wait. It's not fast, and if I'm able to call that number and a human actually answers it, I've got a problem because they're just so busy. But please don't fall victim to that. Once they get your information, they've got it. They've got you. They can actually file your taxes before you do. Okay, with a filing software, all they have to have is certain key pieces of your information. And you know the bad part? The IRS will not let you know where it went. Because in their eyes, the legitimate person filed taxes. So you've got to prove that you are the person that should have filed those taxes. And it takes a lot to actually get anywhere near the information that you need from the IRS. We tried in my previous investigations, and typically it's the victim, our victim, that has to do all the work because they won't tell us either. Who's been threatened over the phone or what have you with impending lawsuits? Did they ever give information? Or because they'll take and they will do their best to make you afraid. Because when I hear the word lawsuit, it's like my heart drops because then I've got to get an attorney and stuff. Lawsuit scams typically involve consumers receiving calls from individuals claiming to be from local, state, or federal law enforcement agencies. The consumers are told that there is a warrant out for their arrest, and unless the person agrees to pay a fine, they will be immediately arrested. Or the scammers will say that you have been involved in some kind of issue that was criminal, and if you do not pay them, they're going to report you to the law enforcement. Or a vehicle you used to own was involved in an accident, and they're saying it's still registered in your name, so now they're saying you are liable. So if you do not pay us ahead of time, we're going to file a multi-million-dollar lawsuit and so forth. It's enough to scare you. The bottom line is they work off of fear, your fear. They work off of pressure, making you think fast, making you make decisions, take action. If they're pressuring you on that line, hang up. If they're legit, they'll call back and they'll say, this is this, and then you write down their information. and you actually research it on the internet through different agencies and so forth before, if they're legit, they'll send you court paperwork. Identity theft. I doubt there's very few of us in here that have not heard or not familiar with identity theft. Basically, it's getting your information, getting your date of birth, getting your social security number, getting information that can be used to break your security questions. Once they have that information, then they act as you. They can go open bank accounts. They can go open charge accounts. They can actually file, as I said earlier, file your taxes as you. They'll get the check and you get nothing. But it's so easy for them to get all the information they need. So many people are vulnerable. They use the pressure tactic, the fear tactic, that if you don't give us this information, we're going to, so forth. It's not just on the internet. When you throw stuff away, old bills, old letters, old bank account information, old statements, you're throwing that stuff into the hands, we call them dumpster divers. And all they've got to do is go through enough paperwork. That's one of the reasons the banks have everything locked up and they've got shred boxes, because they are liable for throwing that stuff out to where it gets in someone else's hands. So they've learned their lesson typically. They're not going to make that information available. You, me, we all typically mess up and throw the stuff away or just leave it laying around. If you have people that visit your house, or you allow someone to use your car and your information is laying there, one would hope you could trust whoever it is, but unfortunately there are those that you cannot. This form is out there. It's for the Aging, DHR, Department of Human Resources Aging Division. Please pick one up. We're in Region 1. And as far as if you think that you have been a victim of identity theft, bills start coming to your house, or your credit score starts to plummet, that's another thing. Credit scores, a lot of these scammers will call you about, we're from Equifax or we're either of the other two reporting agencies. They're phishing. Equifax is not going to ask you to give them your identification information. Okay. And I do believe that's kind of where we're at. It's called the end. Is there a question that I can help you with? And if I can answer it, I will. If not, I will refer you to the resources brochure. Yes, ma'am.
If I get a scam call and I call the sheriff's office to report it, what do you need from me to, what should I be listening for?
I'm sorry. Typically, if you get a scam call, look at the number. But unfortunately, we quite often find the number's been a spoofed number. You know, we've called those numbers back, and it actually is a legit number, but it's to someone else because they have spoofed their number. If they give you information such as you need to mail this here to this location, or you need to deposit it in this account, or whatever you do, do not go to the Bitcoin, because if you buy Bitcoin, that's never traceable to send to them, because that's one of the things the lady with the $50,000 did. She bought Bitcoin at different kiosks, and it's never traceable. But yes, if you get that, anything that you can glean from them, such as if they use a name, if they sound it a certain way, if it's a dialogue that you may be familiar with, that could help. But typically, the name's going to be false. The number's most likely going to be spoofed. But if they give you an account to deposit anything into, or they give you even the emails are hard to work with, but if they send you an email and it's got a link, never open it. Okay. But yes, if you get one, please call us. Yes, ma'am.
I get an average of 3 calls a day that are scams. And a lot of them are coming from northeast Atlanta.
The spoof numbers. All right.
They come up on the phone as northeast Atlanta. And you know, not even answer it because you know exactly what it's going to be. Now, they use several different numbers, but it's a nuisance.
It's typically, the FTC actually, on that resource, the FTC has a form you're supposed to be able to fill out online, and it's supposed to block your number from automated calls. Whether or not that sticks, yeah, unfortunately, as the on-call detective at times, we pull an on-call a week at a time for 24 hours a day. You have to answer every call. 2 or 3 in the morning when I get a call about my car warranty, there's very little you can do at that. But yeah, yes, if you will go to that website on that brochure and enter it in, I would tell you to block it, but they spoof it so many times that it's almost useless. Thank y'all very much. You're welcome, sir.
Real quick, and Dan, I'm going to turn it back over, but real quick, why do they use the grandparent scheme, the scam? Grandchild's in jail. Why do they call grandparents and say why is it not? Why don't they call their parents or the parents scam? Because okay, I just turned 50 and I'm a grandparent. That's a true story. If my kids call me and say, "Daddy, I'm in jail," I'm gonna say, "Good. Good." If my grandbaby calls and said, "Grandpa, I'm in jail," I will turn over the world to help them. All right. So the bottom line is, Russell touched on. I'm going to touch on just 2 things. Most of these scams originate from outside the United States. That's part of why we can't do much about it. There have been now the ones in Georgia. There is a scam, and it's typically, y'all just correct me if I'm wrong, it's typically when you get a phone call from a local number, a local cell phone number or a local number, and they say, "This is Sheriff Stacy Nicholson. You have missed your court date, and I have a car on the way to pick you up. However, you can pay the fine for this, and you won't have to go be booked in." Those types of scams are, and they've actually made cases that's prosecutable cases in Georgia, and believe it or not, folks, they originate out of the Georgia state prison system. Those are state inmates calling you on their contraband snuck in to the prison cell phone, and they're contacting you from the state prison. And I don't know this for certain because they also have access to the internet in prison and the Gilmer County Sheriff's Office website, gilmersheriff.com. You can go on there and meet Sheriff Nicholson, picture of me, how to spell my name, meet Detective Henson, Captain Shepard, Major Gobble. It's got all of our names on there, and so they use all of our names. People call or people get calls every week from someone from the Gilmer County Sheriff's Office. And sometimes it's actually our numbers. Those we're most interested in getting those reports quickly. We may not be able to do anything, but if they're using my name and my cell phone number, it may be someone at least within the United States. So here's the number one thing. If they call and they say you missed jury duty or you've got a bench warrant, if law enforcement calls you, is that a good call or is that a scam? All together, let's say, is that a scam? If they call from the IRS, scam. If they call from the Social Security Administration, and what are we going to do? That's the number one thing that we want to get across to y'all tonight. Thank y'all for having us, and yes, ma'am. It's possible. It's possible. All these calls that y'all were talking about, the car warranty and all that, I'm going to tell you, my phone, my work phone, rings off the hook all day long. And unless I recognize the number, I've gotten to where I honestly don't answer it because my car warranty is expired. But unfortunately, from time to time, I miss a call that I actually need. But it's the world we live in. But I don't block them. You could block them. I can't block them from my work because a lot of times it's going to be a number that's actually a good number. It's just been spoofed. That's right. That's right. Yes. Leaving a message if it's on cell phones. I tell you if you try to call me, if you have a cell phone and you're trying to call me on my cell phone and you don't get me, don't be alarmed by that because that's going to be the typical scenario unless I know who's on the other end. Turn around and send me a text message. Say, this is so-and-so, I need to talk to you. A lot of times I can't talk, and that's why I didn't answer the phone. Sometimes, I don't answer if I don't know who's on the other line because my car warranty is about to expire. All right, thank you.
Those spoof phone calls, I had one, I promised, I was literally walking down this hallway right here. I remember where I was in the church building. It came up, it was one of my former youth's name from when I was in Lincolnton on my phone, according to the call, and I pick it up, and my car warranty was going to expire. So I deleted her information because, come to find out it was her old number. Her number had changed, and I was friends with her on Facebook, so I messaged her through Facebook. I just got a call from you. So they do some really crazy things. I really appreciate our guys from the Sheriff's Department coming out and sharing this with us tonight. I would encourage you, now that this will be sort of in the can, if you will, it'll be on Facebook. You can share this if you'd like to. If there's somebody that you want to make sure they see it, you can share it and tag them in it. So the whole reason that they were here is because they want to get that information out so people will know to be aware of these things. Thank you for being here tonight. Let me close this with a word of prayer and we'll be dismissed. Father, I thank you for your love. I thank you for all you do for us, Lord. Give us wisdom anytime we might be faced with the potential of being scammed. Help us to do what would be right in your eyes and glorify you. God, I thank you for our Sheriff's Department. I pray your protection upon them. Lord, be with them as they seek to protect this community and to do the very best that they can to keep us free of those who would try to do harm to us. Lord, we thank you for them. We just pray your blessings upon them. It's in your precious name we pray. Amen.